Time governs our lives. It moves us, organizes us, makes us plan, remember, and desire. But have we ever stopped to ask, what is time, really? Is it just the passing of minutes and hours? Or is it something deeper, something that dominates us, traps us, and shapes the way we think and live? Today, we will explore the nature of time in two aspects. Chronological time, which organizes our practical lives, and psychological time, which governs our emotions, thoughts, and perceptions. Within psychological time, we'll examine how the constant desire to become something we are not yet enslaves us. You'll discover how these dimensions of time are connected, how they interfere with each other, and how they often prevent us from living fully and freely. Chronological time is something we all know well. It is linear, objective, and measured by clocks and calendars. It is the movement of matter, the rotation of the planet, the passing of seasons, the aging of our bodies. It is essential for practical life. Without it, it would be impossible to coordinate tasks, plan for the future, or even learn from the past. But is chronological time the only kind of time we experience? The answer is no. There is another kind of time, one that cannot be measured by clocks, but that governs our thoughts, emotions, and actions. This is psychological time. Psychological time is very different from chronological time. It is not linear or objective. It is created by the movement of thought. It is the time that makes us carry the past and project the future. For example, when you think about something that happened yesterday, a joy, a loss, or an argument, your mind relives that experience. At the same time, it projects into the future. How can I avoid that? How can I repeat that pleasure? This is psychological time, the constant movement between what was and what could be. But is this necessary? Does this constant movement help us live better? Or does it create confusion, anxiety, and suffering? You might be asking yourself, but don't I need psychological time to live? Don't I need to plan for the future to achieve my goals? Don't I need to remember the past to learn from my mistakes or deal better with people? Let's start with planning. Planning for the future is part of chronological time. It's essential for practical life. You need to plan your work, your goals, or even a trip. But where does the problem arise? The problem arises when psychological time takes over. Instead of simply planning, you begin to live in the future. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? This overthinking creates anxiety and pulls you away from the present where real action happens. Similarly, remembering the past can be useful in practical situations like learning from a mistake. But do we need to constantly carry the weight of regrets, grudges, or traumas? Does endlessly revisiting painful experiences truly help us, or does it just reinforce our suffering? These are the dangers of psychological time. It doesn't help us act with clarity in the present. Instead, it traps us in cycles of fear, desire, and confusion. Now, let's explore one of the biggest effects of psychological time, the desire to become. This mental movement makes us believe that in the future, we will be better than we are now, that we will be happier, more successful, more loved. This desire for constant change seems natural, but in reality, it traps us. Why? Because the becoming prevents us from seeing who we truly are right now. It creates a cognitive dissonance. Instead of facing the reality of what we are in this moment, we identify with an idea of who we want to be in the future. This separates us from ourselves, creating conflict and dissatisfaction. Think about how often we say, when I have enough money, I'll be happy. Or when I get that job, I'll finally relax. But does that change ever really happen? Or is that idea of happiness always in the future, always out of reach? Have you noticed that even when you achieve something you deeply desired, a new desire soon takes its place? Do we ever truly change? Or are we stuck in a constant cycle of seeking? Psychological time makes us believe that change is always in the future, that tomorrow we will be different. that we will be better than we are today. But that change never arrives because it always depends on something that hasn't happened yet. It is just an idea. This is the paradox. By focusing on the future, we forget that real change can only happen in the present. While we're busy trying to become, we fail to see that the root of who we are, our fears, desires, and contradictions remains untouched. To live beyond the becoming and psychological time, we must first understand what this means. It is essential to realize that real change doesn't happen in the future. It happens now when you observe yourself with attention and honesty, without trying to change, without trying to become something else, just observing. When you do this, something extraordinary happens. The present becomes alive. You realize that the idea of becoming is just an escape from what you are. And by stopping this escape, you begin to change. Not because you are trying, but because you are seeing clearly. Psychological time traps us in the past and future, creating the illusion that change is always far away. But when we understand this movement, something profound happens. The weight of psychological time begins to fade. You no longer need to be a slave to becoming. You no longer need to wait for the future to change. Life becomes clear, simple, and extraordinary in the present moment. This is where true transformation happens. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, but now. The matrix is complex, but each of us holds a part of the solution. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and together we'll see beyond appearances.